You're listening to the Served Up Show, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful content. Your hostesses, Bridget Albert, is best known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with over 25 years of experience. And I'm Julie Milroy, best known for my passion for leading change and helping others grow in their careers. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry.
Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. Our guest needs no introduction among wine aficionados. Please join me in welcoming Serafin Alvarado, a master sommelier whose journey in the wine world began under the mentorship of the celebrated icon chef Charlie Trotter. Serafin not only mastered the art of pairing wine with culinary delights, but also cultivated a passion that would become the cornerstone of his career. In this episode, we dive into the rich tapestry of his experiences, exploring the nuances of working alongside a culinary genius and how those early days shaped his approach to the world of sommelier excellence. So grab yourself your favorite glass of wine, sit back, and relax this very special show. Serafin, welcome to Served Up. I am so happy to have you on our show.
Oh, Bridget, a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Serafin, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and how you found yourself in the world of wine?
Very interesting. I truly believe in the fact that I didn't choose this path. The path chose me. And I heard that once via Charlie Trotter, and I'll talk a little bit about that, how important that was in all this career development. But I never imagined I would be in this world. I was born in Brooklyn, New Yorker until I was like 9-10 years old. Big New York Mets fan, big New York Jets fan, which is horrible, but pretty cool. And growing up in Brooklyn was something very wholesome for me, and still have amazing memories in terms of Brooklyn. My family relocated, Puerto Rican parents. My family relocated to Puerto Rico around that age. Was a little bit rough for me, I remember, because of I'm moving from Brooklyn to a very rural part of Puerto Rico, country, and I had to kind of adapt myself to that condition in terms of my friends and the environment. And these were kids that are very country. They would ride horses, they would swim in lakes and fish, and they would do all these stuff that city kids didn't do. So I had to the only thing that really helped me in a certain way connect with them and being embraced by them was sports. So I played baseball. Baseball was my life passion at that age, and so I was able to be embraced in that regard. After that, once I'm in high school, music became very important in my life. I was kind of combining between music and sports, but while in high school, music became very important. I got a music scholarship for University of Puerto Rico. Big deal, full ride scholarship, playing the bass. And I was very proficient in terms of reading and things of that sort. And so my family told me that since I have the scholarship and there's a commitment in terms of hours I need to put into music based on the scholarship, why don't you major in something else? Because you're still going to get the education portion of music heavily. And it just was a safety, just do something else, gives you a little bit more diversity in terms of possibilities and in terms of career future and things of that sort. So my good friends were in natural sciences and chemistry specifically, one in chemistry, one in biology. And so I just followed suit with them. I had the grades, and I was able, okay, let's major in science with a focus in chemistry. So, Bridget, I was really lost. It was a period that I really lost a sense of a purpose, a sense of where I was heading, because I was doing the music, but I wasn't doing it in a way that was fulfilling me. Just meeting the requirements, meeting the minimum that I needed to do. And then on the other side, chemistry was not speaking to me. It was something totally abstract and very cold, and it wasn't resonating. So I was really lost, but just keep going, and then started working part-time in a restaurant, and actually a room service waiter. Actually, it was a new hotel that was opening in my college town called Ponce, which is the second major city of Puerto Rico in the south. And there was this new Hilton property that was opening, and bilingual was basically the only requirement. And I met that. And but since I didn't have any experience in any particular department of hotel, they just put me in room service. And I mean, rightly so. I mean, it was just very simple. Just roll the card. Here's his check. Thank you very much, and leave. But I was very fortunate that I had actually going back a step back. My original, I was looking for a job, and the original job was a shoe store called 9 West, where there's a mall that was opening as well around that time. Female shoe store, right? Primarily, and they hired me for the warehouse. And I remember. I was really excited, my first job ever. And I had a day to show up for first time. And then the night before, actually, literally the night before I was supposed to report to work for the first day, they told me that they did they cut down the opening team. And I was unfortunately part of that cut off. And that what led me to the Hilton Hotel, which the reason why I mentioned this is how fate works. Because if the shoes thing would have happened, who knows? Probably I would have never been in this world. I remember that it was a neighbor that worked in the employment department, and she was able then to advise me about the hotel. I show up to the hotel, all good. And then there's this lady from Baltimore that was my manager, direct manager. She was married to the executive chef. So they're very, very, very passionate about food and wine and hospitality and all that. And that was my first encounter to what hospitality is all about and this world. And she was extremely passionate. So on the downtimes, so the rush was in the morning, breakfast, and then there was a downtime, and then lunch, another rush. So in that downtime, we're just doing menial things like folding napkins, cleaning silverware, where it was. But she would do a lot of staff trainings in the in-between. And wine was one of her passions, even though we were not using that level of knowledge, but it was fascinating. So what it did, it elevated, it ignited in me an understanding of wine, but from an appreciation and understanding of wine, but from another perspective that anybody else that was in that room with me was relating and connecting to it. And why was that? Because of the music and the science component. So as she was talking about wine, I was able to relate from the science perspective, from the chemistry, microbiology, fermentation, yeast, and all that processes that take place from a scientific standpoint. And then science came to life in that sense. And then I think the most critical part was the music component, because the music component helped me relate to wine on a more artistic, on a more from an aesthetic perspective. So able to see the nuances and able to see the underlying pinnings of wine on a more deeper level in terms of appreciation of the sum greater than the parts, and that. Literally, Bridget, that was the light bulb that went on and said, "This is it. This is it. This is what life had led me towards to, and this is what I want to do." And then I asked myself, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best I can be. I want to maximize my potential, my capabilities, and learn as much as I can, and be the best I can be in this world. So I started searching and learned about the Court of Master Sommeliers. And I remember there was a master sommelier that had visited Puerto Rico around that time. And I was able to, through the newspaper and the journalists and all that, I was able to track him and just reach out and say, hey, I'm Serafin Alvarado and I want to be a master sommelier. What do I have to do? Very naive because, I mean, we're talking about, I didn't have no clue of what it entailed and the sacrifices and all the struggles and everything, the commitment and that came afterwards. But I was very fortunate to put me on track. And that led me to Chicago because I started the process of becoming master sommelier. I started in Puerto Rico, but I was isolated in the sense that I didn't have any study partners. I didn't have a study groups. I didn't have mentors that had direct access. So that worked, particularly as I was getting to the higher levels of the program. It was not working in my favor. So, and that's where a relocation was essentially suggested by Doug Frost. You know Doug Frost, right? Common friend. Doug Frost has suggested.
Yeah, I know Doug Frost very well. And I think what's really kind of cool about Doug is that, you know, a lot of times, or maybe not so much anymore, but around the time that you started, for sure, when we talked about wine or sommeliers or master sommeliers, it was so elite that maybe we thought that the folks behind those titles were elitists. Where Doug is so warm and friendly and crazy fun.
Oh, yeah.
And so freaking cool. He really shattered that mold, which I thought was a great thing.
Great teacher, great educator. Gets him. And he's not just a master sommelier, he's a master of wine as well, which is only 4 people in the world have that distinction. And our colleague, Eric Heemer, as well. So I relocated, and then that changed. That relocation. And to be honest, Bridget, I never thought I would leave Puerto Rico. My parents are there, you know, and we never thought I would leave my parents. And I have relocated at that time, my family, my wife, and my 2 young daughters at the time. They were like 5 and 7. So it was a major move. It wasn't just let's go to Chicago. Major move, school, language, culture, a city that I'd never been before, big city, and working at Charlie Trotter's, which is just fascinating. I remember also, it's just amazing how fate works, because in that pursuit of trying to find something that would be more like a training ground for me for the MS, Ritz-Carlton was opening a hotel, a resort in San Juan. And the corporate beverage director for Ritz-Carlton was a master sommelier. His name was Emmanuel Kimiji, one of the first MSs. So he was very present in Puerto Rico while that starting stages of Ritz-Carlton. He was hiring and training and just establishing the culture of Ritz-Carlton. I said, this is it, perfect. Because I'll connect with him and I stay in Puerto Rico and he will be my mentor. Now, that's what I thought, without having to leave Puerto Rico. So I go through the interview process and everything was cool. And then I didn't get the job. And I still see him to this day when I go to Puerto Rico, some events, and I remind him that like you passed on me. And Charlie Trotter it was the opposite. Charlie from Puerto Rico hired me with no experience. No, he cared less about pedigree or any background or anything of that sort. He cared more about attitude, way of thinking, what essentially is your philosophy, and because that's he would say that the technical aspects of the trade he can teach you that, but that hospitality essence and that element of caring, you can't teach that. That is, and he sees that, and he builds that assessment based on a conversation with you, based on what you read. Then he understands what your values are and what your interests are, and then he knows if that's a fit or not. Because even going through that process, it's still really hard. Once you go into the day-to-day with Trotters, that was intense. Not many people were able to sustain that.
Survive it.
Time. Yeah.
I mean, survive it. He was tough. He wasn't the nicest person. I mean, I know I met him multiple times. I worked events in his home. He wasn't the kindest person, you know. It was tough. Yeah. He was tough on people. It
was a philosophy of it was I would say for him, human beings, based on his philosophy, they have an obligation to the world and to society to contribute and bring your skills to the world and contribute the best you can. That's your responsibility. Unfulfilling those skills, unfulfilling your capabilities and your talents and things of that sort, you're doing a disservice to the world, to humanity. We're all here to fit a part of the puzzle and contribute to that big picture. So he was very adamant to push you. It may seem mean, it may seem whatever it is, but it was just a way to wake you up, to be able to fulfill those talents and skills. But I have to say that I was able to know all sides of Charlie Trotter in my time there. And I was able to see his more kinder, more gentler. Believe it or not, he had that side and very empathetic and very understanding. And one of those moments was when I was supposed to be. He's opening a restaurant in Mexico, in Cabo San Lucas, in a hotel called Palmilla, this extremely ultra high end resort. The first now Cabo is very high end right now, but back in the day, it was just a kind of like a college place to go and do tequila shots and spring break and things of that sort. So Palmilla became this one and only, is the name of the company, became this ultra resort. And so Charlie had a restaurant there, and he asked me to be the wine director there at Palmilla. The cultural connection, Spanish and all that, and knowing the Trotter culture, it was easy for me to go over there and do it. And I thought about it, but my girls were very little, and I struggled with it. And I knew that if I turned down the offer, Charlie had a tradition that said, "Well, then let's make this your last day." Then he wasn't too fond of if he offered you an opportunity of growth and you turn it off, then probably you cut off graces from him and with him. And I remember I struggled, got into a meeting with him, spoke to him, explained the reason, what it was, and how grateful I was that he considered me. But I was speaking from the heart, and he looked at me and said, "You know what? I understand. I'm a father as well. If I were be in your situation, I would do the same thing." And that was the first moment I saw that kind of gentler, kinder, empathetic side of him. And from there, he was really proud when I passed my MS. He was really happy and very proud when I passed my MS. And post MS, when I left the restaurant, I kept in communication with him, which is very rare. Charlie had a very small circle of people, friends and former employees they would stay in touch with. And I was very, very fortunate to be part of that circle.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, this is just interesting how life works. A week or 2 weeks prior of his passing, he reached out for something else, and in that something else turned into this long conversation. I remember I needed to turn off the car, and just talking to me like a buddy, like a friend, like we never had spoke.
That's great.
And then he passes 2 weeks later. So it kind of was a way of saying goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had that final, moment with him, because I know that he was your mentor and he meant absolutely so much to you. Did you see the documentary about him?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was hard to watch. I didn't know how to approach it. I remember when it came out and I knew it was going to be very touching.
Yeah.
And for those of us that knew him very closely and we were part of that world.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be in some way touching and emotional, and I did. I saw it once by myself, and then we did a viewing with other former colleagues.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, and it was great. I think it was well done in the sense that it really showed, right, that his other sides. That's not just that tyrant that people tend to portray that he was. There was this also Chuck that was shy and playful, and I loved that love story which is his first wife, and how that evolved. And you got to learn a little bit about him, and his upbringing, and what led to be Charlie Trotter's later that everybody knew.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I hope you do write a book one day. You should write an autobiography. You've lived quite a life. You've lived many lifetimes in your short time.
Yeah.
Really
a lot of great experiences there.
Yeah. So what led you to your current role at Southern Glaziers? What are you doing today?
Well, with Southern Glazier, I knew at that point, this is another great story, because I knew that Charlie Trotter was not a long-term situation. Just the fact that it's very, very draining emotionally, mentally, and physically. It's not a long-term proposition, and already had passed my MS, which was essentially my goal. I took Charlie Trotter as kind of my postgraduate kind of like idea, and gave myself I gave myself 4 years to do it. And then what I did is that I passed my MS, and then gave myself kind of a year to be there as a master sommelier, and return to Charlie, for appreciating, and then move to something else. And then while I was at Charlie Trotter's, I learned a skill set that I was good at in comparison to my other colleagues, other wine team. We all had different skill sets, and we complement each other well. And that's why we built this amazing wine team. At that time, Jason Smith, which is a master sommelier right now, he's in Vegas, and Linda Villago, which is now in Seattle. She's an advanced sommelier. And we created this great team because each of us had different skill sets. And for me was, I was a great teacher. I was able to teach. And it's I mean, this, right? It's a skill set that has nothing to do with the amount of knowledge that you have. There's people with great level of knowledge that we've known, but when it comes to teaching, they're not the best teachers. It's like basketball. Let's say Michael Jordan, basketball players at the level of Michael Jordan, they're very skilled at what they do, but they're not great coaches, So I learned that I had that ability to distill complex concepts in a way that people can really understand. And that's that. And I did that. Obviously, it came natural. I didn't overthink it. It was just, it's a way, how can I explain malolactic fermentation in a way that people can understand it and relate to it and understand the whys and the connections. I'm a true believer. I think it's because of how I learn. Things need to make sense to me, because if it doesn't make sense, I just can't memorize facts. And just for the sake of memorizing a fact, it has to make sense to me. I need some background. I see context. And so I need to connect the dots, how things connect and relate to each other. And that's how I really understand a concept rather than memorizing it. And once I understand it, it's mine. I'm not going to lose it. I understand it. I can teach it. I can turn it upside down. I can manipulate the information because I understand it well. And that's what helped me to be a teacher. And I love to see the response. How when you see, you've been there too, Bridget, right? Where you see that spark in their eyes when they get it, when they come to this self-realization of what you're trying to convey. And it's a beautiful moment. That realization of understanding a concept, that aha moment. And so I knew that probably that would be my next step. And so again, I knew that Southern, at that time was Southern Wine and Spirits, what's coming to Illinois. That was around 2002, somewhere around there. They were coming to Illinois. They were combining, they bought several distributors, Romano, and so on and so forth. And so I knew that was happening. And so I did, this is a great, crazy story. I tell this story and people it's just the naiveness again. The same way that I approached this MS to pursue the MS program, so who do I call? So the only person of name that I knew from Southern was Mel Dick. So
hang on, hold up, because this is a worldwide podcast. Some people may not understand the gravity of the person that you just called out of the blue. Can you explain who Mel Dick was at that time to the beverage world, and still really is today?
It still is. I mean, I think Mel Dick, a lot. I mean, with the Chaplains, obviously, and Mel Dick, they built basically what is wholesaler, distributor culture of wine here in the United States. The way we know it today, all that framework that was built through what the Chaplains and what Mel Dick did back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. Wasn't he the first person to ever do wine by the glass on a menu?
Yes, very formative.
That's bananas. And this is who you just called up and said, hey.
Yeah. Very forward thinking. And I mean, we're talking about in the late 60s, early 70s, the culture of wine wasn't what is now. So he was a pioneer along with the Robert Mondavis of the world, in terms of building the culture of wine in America. And so I called Mel Dick. And I was hoping to get to a voicemail. And so I called, and the assistant picks up. Yeah, all right. So I said, "This is Serafin. I'm calling from Chicago, Charlie Trotter's. Just trying to reach Mel Dick." Oh, okay, 1 second, please. And then she puts me on hold. And then comes this voice and said, "Hello, Mel Dick here." And I said, "Whoa, this is Mel Dick." So now you got to go. Now you can't shy now. And so, hello, Mr. Dick. This is Serafin. I explained what it was. I really think that the call went through because I said Charlie Trotter's. Charlie Trotter's at that time, big restaurant. So as the great that he is, he thought anyway, he was not going to pass on that call. So then I told him, this is my career options. I really want to. I'm excited that Southern is coming to Illinois. I know. And that's the other thing, that I knew the culture of Southern as being really pro-education and pro training, and which is how we got into the company, because of that culture, because of that mentality and mindset. So I knew that was there. I was not coming into something totally new, proposing education. I knew it was music to his ears. And I said, hey, I would love to be part of the team in Illinois. I'm currently at Charlie Trotter's, but I'm considering at some point moving away. Right now, I'm pursuing my MS. I'm taking the exam. I had passed already one section. I passed the service portion, so I had theory and tasting left, and I was going to take it. I mean, when I made the call, probably it was like 2 months later. And he said, "Wow, that's amazing, Serafin. That's fantastic. Good for you. Good luck." And he said, "You know what? Let's do this." He tells me, "Let's do this. Give me a call when you pass your MS, and we'll have a conversation." And I said, "All right. Oh, that's fantastic, fantastic." I remember ending the phone call and then having this moment of happiness and excitement. But then at the same time, I said, "Well, wait a minute. Was he just being nice to me?" Because the chances of me becoming a master sommelier is a 3%, 3 to 5%. So the chances of me calling him back is a 3 to 5%. But in my eyes, he basically gave me hope. And he said, "All right, so call me back when you become an MS." All right. So when I go 2 months later, I pass my tasting and I pass my theory in the same shot. So it was generally my second attempt at the MS, and became an MS. And so here I am. I got to call Mel Dick. And I called Mel Dick, same process. I went through his assistant. "Okay, please hold." And blah, blah, the music in the background. And this is the part that really, for me, separates people of his caliber, why they are the way they are. When he picks up the phone, he didn't say hi or anything. The first thing that he said came out of his mouth was, "Did you pass?" So he remembered the conversation. He remembered his promise. And the first thing he says was, "Did you pass?" And I thought I was going to have to explain all over again who I was and that we spoke 2 months ago and things of that sort. And he was right on. And I said, "Yes, I did." It said, "Fantastic. Congratulations. All right, and let's start the process. And that's when he told me that
Wow.
Will Conniff,
Mm-hmm.
which we worked together with Will, was going to be assigned to Illinois, and he was going to basically restructure everything that was at that point there, and kind of build that Southern culture there. Once he was settled, we'll call you. And that was the end of the conversation. It's like, don't call me, we'll call you.
Mm-hmm.
And Will did call me.
Wow.
Like 3 months later after that conversation, I had a phone call from Will. Hey, this is Will Conniff. Mel Dick gave me your information, and I want you to come in, and so we can have an interview and have a conversation. And that was it.
And so now, how long have you been with Southern?
This is, I mean, your same time. So this is going to be our 19th year, right? Probably.
I'm going on 20. This is going to make 20.
So I'm a year behind you, right?
Just, very, very slight. Yeah.
Right. So, I think this is our 19th going on to 20 now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Which is fascinating. And I'm very grateful because I've been able to do a 20-year career and doing something that I love, which is education and inspiring people and connecting with people. And we, both of us, we've seen, right, people that we have worked closely and see how their careers have blossomed. And that we saw them early in their early stages of their careers. And with that's very gratifying, because 20 years, you see careers progress and evolve and grow and develop. And so it's just fascinating. And the thing with education is that in our world, and particularly the wine world, it's so changing. It's so dynamic and changing that there's never a time that you can sit back and say, I know it all and I feel comfortable and just relax and chill. And the other thing is the commitment of Southern as a company, Southern Glazers now, as a commitment to that education portion that not many companies have that level of commitment and understanding the connection of, right, how important is in terms of having a sales staff that is educated, knowledgeable, in order to build that trust and credibility, and sales follow from there.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. You know, something that you touched on was just the wine world ever evolving. You know, when you look back on your career, how has the wine world really changed since when you started to today? What are some of the highlights?
I think, well, first and foremost, I think is how things are changing in terms of when you think about, right, what's happening in terms of, let's say, climate change. So you're starting to see now, right, how regions that when I started learning about wine, Bridget, there was a certain style associated to it. Today, 20 plus years later, plus I got considered 25 or so when I started the whole education with wine. Now those styles have morphed into something else. So my understanding of what a traditional style would be in a certain area, that is changing. Like Champagne, for example, is changing. Germany is changing. The Loire Valley, Sancerre, those regions, that is changing. Bordeaux is changing. Burgundy. So this what we consider these classic archetypes, that is evolving, that is changing. And I think we're right now in the mid of all that. It's fascinating the way consumers are relating to wine. It's fascinating. I was able to see a process where wine was very elitist, was a very segmented to a small group of wealthy, male, older, right? That was kind of the fine wine crowd, was essentially that. It evolved into something more inclusive and see it a little bit more mainstream. Now, I remember going to supermarkets back in the day, and basically that $10, $15 below section was a minefield. I mean, there was not a lot of good wines there, and the section was much smaller. And grocery stores now today, you go to any supermarket, right? You'll see that it's just shelves and shelves, and the options are endless, and they're all great wines and different price points, different styles. So it's more about your likings. But from a quality perspective, they're solid in their price categories. They're great values. So that has changed tremendously in that regard, how consumers are relating. Now, right, recently, the emphasis, which I remember, probably you remember this, that the connection of consumers with what all has to do with sustainability and organic and things of that sort. I remember once upon a time, consumers didn't. That wasn't an aspect of wine that people would pay attention to, and we started to see that in food, right, with Whole Foods and produce there and all that. How that has translated into other to wine and other beverages. It's just fascinating how that is. That it's a value. I think that's positive because that has forced a lot of producers to really pay attention to that, since consumers are valuing that aspect. As of recent, it's pretty cool to see also social change. You know, how consumers now, it's not just about that it's Cabernet. It's not just about that it comes from a certain area. They want to know the values of the property, of the winery in relation to inclusiveness, you know, and social justice and in terms of how they treat their employees, you know, things of that sort. You know, that's important for consumers today. I think
I'm glad that it is. I'm glad that it is. Yeah. I'm glad that we're valuing humanity now. You Absolutely. Know, really the people that are serving you and what their work day to day looks like. And then you mentioned like the diversity of it all. You know, I know that for such a long time, even at Southern Glaciers, you know, you'd see just the stereotypical white guy as your salesperson with his suit and his tie. And so I think that, you know, early on that Mary Barranco, who was in charge of education when you and I met for Southern Glaciers of Illinois, was very groundbreaking at that time, you know, Absolutely. Hiring myself, who is a woman, yourself, you know, a Puerto Rican, and just having that, starting a diverse team of sorts to go out and really to be the face of Southern Glaciers of Illinois when it came to our brands and brand education. I think that was such a fierce, bold move.
You think about it. That was in 2005, 6 when we started this movement.
Yeah.
And we built it from scratch. I remember it was something that we went out there with a new message, and just little by little, right, getting people to get on board with the message and get on board with the and we have to. It was really ground roots. It was little by little, and getting suppliers behind us, you know, to support little by little, see right the progress and see how things were growing and. To essentially change paradigm.
Yeah. And now we see change. It's just such a different place today to work and to be than it was in 2005. And I think that sings the same song for many places that are really taking a look, you know, at not just their hiring process, but do they have the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs? You know, what does the culture look like? And, you know, does everything really go back to those family values? And I think that it's an incredibly exciting time to work for Southern Glaciers today. And and for you, especially, Serafin, where you are that spokesperson for the wine side of the industry in the state of Illinois. I mean, you're having that one-on-one time with the customers, with the sales team, and really just sharing your passion and your love for your craft. And how great is that you get to do that every day?
Yeah. Very fortunate. And I feel, I don't know, like I probably like an actor feels or an athlete feels, you know, that you able to dedicate, right, make a living and dedicate your day to day to something that you really believe in and you're wholeheartedly invested in.
100%. What's next for you, Serafin?
Right now, well, actually very interesting. I'm in the MW program, Master of Wine program, which I never thought that would get again into the rigor of a study program like the MS. But I came, this was a realization I came back actually through lockdown and COVID. That I just want, for me, is continuing education is fundamental, and it keeps challenging you and keeps pushing you to be a better professional, challenge yourself to be the best you can be, which is why I got into this in the first place. And I always had admired the MW program in the sense of their approach to wine. It's a little bit different from the MS, in which is local thinking, and which I've always has been my approach toward learning and my approach towards teaching. Like I mentioned earlier, connecting the dots, making sense of the information, establishing that difference between knowing and understanding. And the MW program kind of follows in that direction. And I thought, why not? And then my boss, Eric Heemer, he's one of the 4 master sommeliers, master of wine in the world, and also inspired me. Very inspiring that I know that it's something that is there, and why not? Why not try it? There's no guarantee that I'm going to achieve it, but going into it, I know at least the level of commitment that takes the heart that takes, and using the blueprint of the MS program preparation. It's at the very least, I'm going to learn a lot and bring that to my students. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful for you. How wonderful that you can continue to challenge yourself. And, something that our listeners may not be aware of, that you are a rock and roll star as well. Can we talk just a little bit about your band that's so amazing in the Chicagoland area called the Rack and the Riddler? And tell our listeners where they can find you performing.
Well, the Rack and the Riddler comes as again, I mentioned earlier, right? Music was an important aspect of my life early on, my teen years, and then put it aside because of my wine career. And at some point after the MS, I wanted to get back into it. Again, it's so integral, so part of who I am. And while at Southern, I did a couple of jams here and there before that, but while at Southern, it coincided that we had a group of people like-minded that also were very passionate about music and studied music and things of that sort. And John Blum, for example, back in the day, was an HR recruiter. He had studied music and found his way where he was currently in his career away from music, but he also in the same mindset that he wanted to get back together, whatever it is. I remember him, and then Michael Barranco, which is Mary's son, which is interesting because I remember when we started working there, Michael was a little.
I think he was like 12.
He was like 12. Would show up, and then now we're in the same band, and that's how it all came about. Was industry members, and then the name relates to wine. So the Rack and the Riddler is a reference to champagne and the champagne method of production, where you put the bottles of champagne after the second fermentation to age on these racks called pupitre, and then a person comes and shakes the bottles to disturb the sediment, to disturb the yeast, so the wine can extract all that contribution of the lees, and that's the Riddler, and hence the Rack and the Riddler, how it came about, and so we did a lot of wine and music presentations. Remember we did a couple of them at City Winery, which I think those were very fulfilling because I was able in that type of setting, I was able to really combine both of my passions, wine and food. Wine and music, because we were able to do these pairings in terms of certain sets with certain wines, and just guide the people who are attending the show through this trip in terms of music connecting to. I'm a great believer that music has an effect in terms of how you relate to a certain beverage and with food. And there's no coincidence why you go to restaurants and there's music in the background. So there's always been this subliminal effect of music in terms of how your mood affects your mood and how it opens you up to a certain experience. And now there's a little bit more scientific research related to that. But it's fascinating how your experience of a certain wine changes with a certain music. And again, that's not new, right? We have music that if we're in a beach mood, right? There's a certain, let's listen to reggae, right? If we're on a study mood, we have to, I don't know, we have something a little bit more classical, a little bit more, if we're a little bit more romantic mood, right? So it's there's a music that suits your mood and suits how you're going to open up to an experience. So with that, I think we did a lot of that, and the band has been performing tremendously. We did a lot. Again, it's a part-time thing. We could have grown the band to be something bigger, but the reality, we always wanted to keep it as a hobby that is fun, because once it stops being a hobby, and we got to that point at some point, Bridget, that where we were gigging a lot and it was getting stressful, and then it stops being fun. But remember, we all have our day jobs. But it's fantastic. It's something that I really enjoy. I get lost myself and on stage, and music is one of those things that for me is just you get lost into it, and seeing like that reaction when you're playing a gig and you see everybody happy and smiling and jumping and singing along. And this is the thing, our genre is 90s, which is it's a great genre. It's a genre.
It really is. And it's back. It is. Anything 90s right now is so hot.
Yeah. And all these, think about Weezer and Blink-182 and Green Day and Nirvana and all that stuff. Those are timeless music that the current generation right now knows them.
Yeah.
They know these songs. They relate to it. And so it's a great era, and yeah, Gwen Stefani, no doubt. That's good music. That's good music.
Great music. Love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you, Serafin, for spending some time here on
Absolutely.
Served Up with me. I hope you'll come back. Will you come back?
Absolutely.
Be a return guest in maybe in 6 months, and we'll check in with you.
Absolutely.
How you're doing.
It will be my pleasure, Bridget.
I would love it. And, I just want to wish you some great health and a lot of peace, brother. Thank you for being on Served Up.
Same to you and your family. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody who's listening. And just very exciting about what's happening in the wine world. Just keep, again, just to finish with something positive. I think the key here is when things are done from the heart, when they're sincere, when there's a true element of generosity, it fills the world with possibility and love and good things. And I think we have that possibility, the opportunity to, in terms of what we do with wine and spirits, to bring that element of love and joy. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about the wine and the food. It's what it creates community, it creates connection, it creates people coming together. Wine and spirits and cocktails is a bridge to create those moments, to create those experiences, to create that element of human connection that's critical. And if we do it with that level of sincerity and understanding that is the ultimate goal, then we're doing something good to humankind and society.
Cheers to that, and cheers to you.
Absolutely. Cheers to you as well.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of future Served Up episodes. Cheers!